Hello, thanks for clicking. You all seem to absolutely love when I do these fair skin makeup videos, and I totally get it because whenever I'm searching for fair skin makeup, there's just not a lot of videos out there here on YouTube. And I found that was especially the case with wedding makeup as well. So today I'm going to give you the ultimate guide for fair skin wedding makeup. If you're doing your own makeup for your wedding and you have fair skin, there might be some certain things that you encounter that are a little more difficult because you are so fair, you have light skin, colors show up too bright, things are unflattering. So I have all of my favorite products and also my favorite tips to make sure that you look your best and feel the most confident, and also just, flaunt your fair skin. So let's go ahead and get started. Skin prep is going to be really important, so I wanted to include it in today's video, starting with a really nice affordable option. This is from Heritage Store. It's the Rosewater and Glycerin spray. This is an amazing base. It says dry to combo skin. The glycerin and rosewater, really soothing, nice and hydrating, but not heavy at all, which is really key here. I probably edited something weird over that. Let's move on. I have some serums here, light and hydrating serums. One is a new one I've been trying but really loving. This brand actually I highly recommend. Peach and Lily make amazing skincare. This is their Copper Peptide Pro Firming Serum. It's a very thin consistency. You could probably tell just from me jiggling it like that, and it has a really cool color. Doesn't really have to do with the formula, but it is a very hydrating, soothing type of product that literally feels like water on your skin, so it's not going to weigh anything down. So I'm going to very lightly just spread this onto my face and neck area. And then I'm going to go in with this Honua Hawaiian skincare. This is their Hibiscus Beauty Booster with Hyaluronic and astaxanthin. I'm not exactly sure what that does, but hyaluronic acid. Hydrating, again, this is one that is very thin, nice and juicy. Not going to feel heavy. It's a bit thicker than that Peach and Lily one, which is literally like the consistency of water. So I like to layer this one after that one. I always like to go in order of, how thick the products are. I chose these skincare products because it doesn't matter really what skin type you have. These thin hydrating products are going to be great whether you have dry or oily skin. If you have dry skin, you might want to layer some thicker serums with this, but I have some moisturizer options. If you're doing your own skincare combo, of course, make sure you test it and make sure it doesn't pill up with the other product or with your makeup, because that would just be horrible. I know, I hate that, and it would just not be a good time. So I have my moisturizer here. I want to recommend one if you have oily skin or you hate the feeling of moisturizers. Peach and Lily, they have a gel hydrator, which is like a gel consistency moisturizer. I absolutely love that, especially for like summer, warmer months. I recently ran out of it, so I'm using a bit of a thicker moisturizer, but definitely check that one out. It will be below. Now, if you have more dry skin or you want something a little bit more moisturizing as the base, it's also going to depend on the foundation you're using. Today, we're going a little bit more matte and long wearing, so I want that extra moisture. I'm going to use the Verse Skin Soak Rich Moisture Cream. This is also a really nice, more affordable option. I believe this is around $10 to $15. This is really unique. It is so plumping and really gives your skin like a boost of life. I hope you can tell on camera, but like it literally just adds that glow to your skin. It is a bit thicker, but I don't feel like it feels very heavy, especially with those lighter serums. And I like to just take whatever is left over right on my under eyes. I don't usually use like an eye cream or anything too heavy. I feel like most of the time it just like messes with concealer. But if you have very dry under eyes, be sure to do that. I just like to use whatever is left over. So this is like a random optional step, but I just got this. Oh, I believe the brand is Solawave. This is like a little red light wand. Let me show you. It has this like buzzing, it vibrates and it warms itself, so it might be a little bit annoying on camera. If it is, I'm just gonna speed through this part, but what we're gonna do is just massage the skin with this red light. It like plumps the skin, makes everything look nice and awake. I didn't do that for super long because I didn't want to irritate the skin too much. I just wanted a little bit of relaxation going on in the face. Okay, so once you feel like your skincare is like really set, then we're gonna want to get into makeup. If you still feel like it's not quite sunken in yet, give yourself like 5 more minutes. But let's move into primers. I'm not a huge primer person because most of them just don't do a lot for me, but this is the one exception, the iconic London Underglow Blurring Primer. This one is so unique and interesting because It adds like life and glow to your skin, but it's not heavy. And it also has that like silicone smoothing element to it. So it's something that's great for so many different skin types. Tell like the consistency, it's almost like a serum. And I like to start this in the T-zone. The one thing I would change about this is the fragrance. It's just not my favorite, but it doesn't seem to irritate my skin too bad. And I like to start this in the center of the face. Make sure you get right into like those smile lines. Anywhere you feel like your makeup like really will wear off. It's one of the only glowy products that I feel like doesn't add a lot of weight to makeup and also has those smoothing properties. It's just so interesting, amazing. Love that primer. Before we hop into foundation, I really want to emphasize the fact that you want to make sure you're going for a makeup look that you feel like is the right amount of makeup for you, that you feel the most comfortable in. Because if you don't wear a ton of makeup and you don't really like the feeling of makeup and you do something that's super like full glam, you're probably just going to be like thinking about it all day and just not really feeling it. Of course, maybe there's situations where you don't wear a lot of makeup but you are comfortable wearing a little bit more for a special occasion. For me, I definitely like to be a little bit more glam, but not like so over the top. Especially with fair skin, makeup can look very makeup-y on us very quickly, especially while making this tutorial. So just wanted to emphasize that. Moving on, let's talk about foundations. This is widely going to range depending on your skin type and what lasts the best on you. So really just experiment, but this is like an age-old favorite, and for a reason, because it doesn't freaking move off of your face and it's like so transfer proof. This is the Estée Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Makeup. Now if you have fair skin, you might have a bit of a hard time finding a shade in this, so I will link some of my alternative favorites. You could also possibly use a white mixer. As long as you test it, make sure that it doesn't interfere with the formula. I'm using the shade 1W1 Bone, which is almost the perfect match for me. So the reason that I picked this is because it is really thin and it doesn't feel like makeup on your skin, but it's really full coverage and does the job, because I really don't like the feeling of like super heavy foundation. I don't think really anybody does. So I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna use a sponge because that's my favorite tool, but I would use whatever you feel like you're the most comfortable with. So instead of applying it directly on the face, I'm going to start by applying it to my sponge and then blending it in. This way we're gonna make sure we get a super smooth base. And this does dry relatively quickly. So you're going to just start to place this down. I personally actually start on like the outer edges of my face, blending this down the neck, onto the ear. You wanna make sure you really get into the hairline as well. As I was saying, I start on the outer edge of my face actually because I have like most of my discolorations on the outer edge of my face. But if you feel like you have more towards the center, I would start with that. But I like to do that as well because this is where your makeup will start to look cakey. So I like to minimize the amount of product that we have there. If you have like red ears like me, you might want to go as far as literally putting makeup over your ears, especially if you're wearing your hair up. I'm not going to do that today, but just a little tip. And also make sure you get like behind your ear, like really make sure your neck is blended, like check in so many different lighting scenarios. That was one of my other tips, is like do test runs, make sure you look at it in natural light, flash photography, regular photography, like bright lighting, like really check it out. So because I used a sponge with this foundation, it did sort of shear it down to more of a medium coverage, and I do have some patchiness of redness showing through. So I'm gonna go in with another thin layer. This is why I like using a sponge as well, because I prefer to build things up versus doing like a super thick layer at first. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit more, using the same technique of putting it on my sponge before I apply it to my face. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and start to layer this up. So here we are with our second light layer. This foundation does not match me perfectly. You can see it's slightly warmer, so I would for sure buy another shade of this, a lighter shade, and mix it to get my perfect match. But I do only have one shade of this, so we're gonna have to work with it for now. That really just goes to like emphasize my point. It might take a while, but try to find a very good match for you. I have fair olive skin, so it is so difficult to find both a formula and a shade that like works well. You might have to mix some shades. Sometimes it just is what it is, unfortunately. But nowadays I feel like foundations are coming out with a lot bigger shade ranges, thankfully. So this is what we got going on. I also forgot to mention, I'm gonna do my eyes after my face. If you're like more of a beginner, you're scared of getting like glitter on your face, or maybe you're just using something a little bit more sparkly, for sure just do your eyes first. I feel fine doing them after, so really just gauge what you feel like would work best for you. Before we take care of these very purple under eyes, I am going to be using a contour product and a cream one, another affordable option, the e.l.f. Halo Glow Beauty Wand. The reason that I love this is because the shade is just so perfect. I would say like, I feel like one of the most obvious makeup things, especially on fair skin, can be like orange bronzers or just too much bronzer in general. Bronzer that's the wrong shade. So that's the reason I like this, is because it's actually a cool shade and it's more on the sheer side, so you're not going to get that super heavy look. So I am actually going to go, I don't know what to call it, piece by piece, I guess, and blending as I go so it doesn't dry down too quickly. I just like to put that right under my cheekbone, and then I'm taking this dense brush and I'm just going to start patting it in, not dragging too much. I don't want to disrupt the foundation, and always start with a little bit because you can always go back in, but it's a lot harder to remove product. Hopefully you can see it does give you a contour, but it's way more subtle than like a contour stick, and you're gonna get a lot more of a natural effect. Thin layers is really the key here. We want to build upon this look. It's going to be quite a lot of makeup, but when we build it up in these thin layers, it's not going to look like we have tons of makeup on. I'm going to do a little bit on the top of my forehead. Really make sure this one is blended into your hairline as well. We're also going to do this on the jawline. This one's really important to make sure it is blended. Next up, going back in with our sponge that still has the foundation on it, we're going to go over these contour spots to make sure, extra just security, that everything is blended. Moving on, we really got to correct these under eyes. I'm going to use this Pixie Peach Corrector. I love this one. It is a bit thicker, but I don't find that it creases on me. I want to go very light-handed with this as well. I love to apply this with my finger. Next up, the Haus Labs Concealer. So for some background, if you're new to the channel, I have like round eyes, there's just lines under there, and my under eyes love to crease. They're very crease prone, just the shape of my eyes and how things work. This is the only concealer that I found that literally, like, it might crease like the slightest bit at the end of the day, but it is so crease proof and long wearing and has such good coverage. I cannot recommend this one enough. They also have some really good shades. This is the one Fair Golden, which is a bit more yellow. Again, I might get another shade and mix this to make it even more brightening, but I'm just gonna start by dabbing that right where I have the sort of darkest areas of my face, and then we'll go from there. So I'm also going to blend this in with my sponge. See how quickly that blends out and it just covers everything? So foolproof, honestly. I'm also going to take this on my lid because I feel like it's a great shadow primer because it's so crease resistant. Just a thin layer though. Once I have that first layer on, I'm just going to look, see if I need a little bit more. I feel like I could, and I'm just going to build on there. Just 2 little dots. Now that all of our liquids that we're going to use are on, you want to make sure that all your ducks are in a row before you go in and set. So I like to go eye by eye, area by area, make sure that everything's smoothed out. So if you have some settling in the smile lines, smooth that out before you set things. So for setting powder, you're going to want to avoid anything that has the name HD in it, which I know may seem contradictory because you're like, oh, HD's like photography and stuff, but I'm sure you've seen all those pictures of celebrities where they have that like weird patchy white stuff on their face. Those are HD silica powders. So one that is totally colorless, which is amazing for fair skin. The Laura Mercier one is a great powder, but it has a slight yellow tint to it, so if you feel like your skin can't handle it, try this one out. It is so thin, it just does the job of a classic powder. Dermablend loose setting powder. It looks white, but it literally just has no color to it. I am going to start by lightly setting with a brush, and then we're going to go in with a bake. I feel like doing this makes my under eyes look even smoother. Sometimes if I go directly in with a ton of powder, it can end up looking cakey, which we don't want. So as I mentioned, I'm gonna go in, make sure everything is smooth before I set. So you may be able to see that I do still have darkness under my eyes, but we're gonna fix that and correct it later without adding too much more concealer. So for baking, I'm going to grab this powder on a little bit of a powder puff, and then I like to start this right on the sides of the nose. I keep most of it right in this inner corner. Do a little bit on the outer edge here, and then whatever's left, I'll bring it down, press into the smile line, right onto the chin, Chin is a problem area for me, so I do like to bake this area as well. But if you feel like it's not, you totally don't have to. If you have dry skin, you might not need to do this step at all, but I'm more combo oily, so I want to make sure everything is set and ready to go. For the rest of the face, I am going to use that same powder, the Dermablend one, but I'm going to take a fluffier brush in a much lighter amount. I'm going to set the rest of the perimeter of the face. This foundation is more matte, so we don't need to set too much, but you do want a layer of powder. Okay, you might have thought that, oh, we're done with powder now. We are not. I have another trick. This is from One Size Beauty. It is their Ultra Pink powder. I bought this thinking it would work for my under eyes, but it is way too pink, but I found an alternate way to use it that I really like. This is also a really good powder if you wanted to just use the regular version. So as you can tell, this is very pink. This is sort of going to be, think of it like a transition shade for our blush. So I'm gonna take a fluffy blush brush and sort of get a little bit of powder. If you have cool skin, this might work for you on your under eyes, but it doesn't necessarily work for me. I'm gonna take that fluffy brush and I'm basically going to tap this right from the top of my cheekbone, even slightly into the under eye, where I would apply blush. Basically what this is going to do is going to create the transition shade for the blush, like I mentioned, so it's going to give you more of a gradient, so your blush isn't going to seem like it's just like blush on your face. It's going to like blend into the face as if it's natural, even though it's not, because it's such a pastel pink. That's why it works as a transition. I also do a little bit on the nose. I think that actually looks cute and not too weird. Just gonna give you like different shades to your face. When you look totally blocked out, that's when things can look makeup-y, but once you start building in different colors and tones, we're gonna bring the life back because we're moving into even more powder. I know it's a lot, not necessary, but if you really want to build dimension, this is a really good way to do so. Another product from One Size, they have this Stage White Powder Foundation. You're gonna want to be very careful with this unless you are super duper fair, like even fairer than me, almost the shade of this, because this can show up very obviously in photography or really any scenario. I'm taking this KVD brush, which has like a really nice point to it, and I'm gonna use this to sort of bring out the areas of the face. So I'm gonna start by just bouncing this right under the cheekbone. You can tell that just like brought that out, define the contour. We're gonna do the same over here, a little bit in between the eyebrows and also down the nose. And then you could also take a little bit just on the top of the cheekbone to lift that. So I don't want my bake to dry out my skin too much, so I'm gonna go in with a fluffy brush now that all the rest of our powders are done and applied, and just begin to dust this off. If you feel like at this point after the powder's brushed off there's still a little bit of like starkness, don't worry, because we will fix that later on with setting sprays. But let's move into building more of this face dimension, right? We're gonna wanna go in with some powder bronzer. First, I'm gonna use this Surratt bronzer. This is the Artistique bronzer in Soleil. I don't know how to say it. I'm gonna put it in the description. This bronzer, it just has such a nice tone for fair skin. You really wanna make sure you're not using anything too warm or orange, because like I mentioned, that can be one of the most obvious things. Using an angled brush, this one's from Luxie, I'm going to dab into the product. I always like to brush excess off onto my wrist or hand. That way when we go in, we're not gonna get like a big patch of product. And I'm just going to lightly just blend this right over the contour. See, just like the perfect natural color. And then I'm gonna buff into the forehead. I would say with bronzer, just use less than you think you would need. I'm guilty of going overboard with it. You just want it to be the transition between your contour and your skin tone, almost like we used that pink powder. A little bit I like to do right under the chin, sweep whatever's left over the jawline, and then down the sides of the neck. I am going to do a little bit of contour using this Dior palette. This is the Universal palette. I really love this because you get different shades, but also this shade is just a natural, more neutral, cool contour. It's not as cool as the e.l.f. one, so it's a good color between the bronzer and the contour. Again, brushing off the excess. And then I just like to sort of reinforce that contour. Again, this is just such a light amount of product that it's not going to be super noticeable. I'm gonna pinch this brush and do a little bit of a nose contour. This is gonna be a really soft way to do it. Make sure that doesn't look too obvious. You could use a smaller brush, but I feel like this way actually ends up looking really blended. Since the rest of the face is so matte, I actually feel really comfortable using a more shimmery blush, but if you want to stick with matte, you could totally do that and layer up a little bit of a shimmer later. I'm going to take this Flower Beauty blush brush, just work it into this. Oh, this is the RMS Beauty French Rose, by the way. Absolutely love this shade. It is so flattering on fair skin. It's a really cool pink, has a nice brightness to it. And then I'm going to start by applying this in circular motions. Because we have that light pink laid down, it'll help this look not as obvious. Hopefully you can tell just what that shade and shimmer does to the skin. It is so pretty and I feel like it looks really natural. So if you're comfortable with it, blush can actually really be washed out in photos and can wear off during the day. You can do a slight bit more than you're used to, but definitely up to you. I also almost work it into the outer corner of the eye. It just seems to look a little bit more natural on me. Alrighty, blush is on. I feel like it's even being washed out on my camera right now. It's a little bit brighter in person. So for highlight, I would go with something very natural and finely milled, and that is light enough for your skin, which can be really hard to find. The ambient lighting powder from Hourglass, the Ethereal Light, as you can tell, this is basically a white shade. This is not meant as a highlight. It's basically like a finishing powder, but I find that if you layer it up with a fan brush, it is basically just the perfect natural highlight, and it doesn't look like glittery or chunky. It's just going to give you back the glow. So I do a little bit over the blush, not too much because it already has some glow to it. I like to do it down the nose. This also just photographs so beautifully. You can do a little bit on the chin. And I love the fan brush to apply it specifically because it diffuses everything and you're not going to get that demarcation line. It also hit right above those brows. If you have dry skin, please avoid using this much powder, but if you feel like you're more combo oily and can handle it, then you can go ahead and do what I'm doing. So this is the Fit Me powder, by the way, by Maybelline. This is the shade 05 Claire, I believe the lightest shade. It is actually a very brightening shade for fair skin, which can be a little bit hard to find, so that is my recommendation. Taking this small fluffy brush, taking this powder, so we're only gonna place this, see we have some darkness and hollowness in the eyes. This is really a good tip for deep set eyes. Only apply it right in there. The reason for this is because it's gonna bring forward that hollow area. And if we put it by the nose, it's gonna bring everything forward, so it's not necessarily gonna do as much for us. This is also gonna be a slight barrier in case we get any fallout. And I do also like to pop this just on the outer corner of the eye. This will also give us like a direction for the shape of the eyeshadow. Moving along to brows. I do have a tip if you have lighter brows for me, but just do your brows however you like. I'm gonna use the Maybelline brow pencil. Make sure you just have a shade that works well for you, which is the reason that I like this one. It's a fine tip, so it's really easy to work with. So now that my general brow shape is on, this is a nice tip if you want to add the essence of naturalness to your brows. This is from Bodyography. It's new. They have this liquid brow definer, which is a brow pen, and this is going to give you like fake brow hairs basically. This can be really hard to master, so you might want to practice, but I like to do just a couple in the front of my brows or any areas you feel like that are a little bit more sparse, and it'll just give you like more of a natural hair look versus them being more blocky. You want to be very light with this and like a feathering motion. So I just did some right on the inner portion of the brow. You might be able to tell it just gives more of like a defined look. So this next tip is kind of a weird one and only is going to work for you if you have like light brows or gray brows and you feel like maybe brow pencils are usually too dark for you. I like to take that same Maybelline powder, that light tinted one, on that same brush, and I just feather it. You can go through the entire brow. I like to go through the inner corner because it's going to give like that ombre look. You want to be very careful with this because you don't want your brows to look like ashy or powdery or anything, but it basically kind of just like tones down the shade of the brow pencil and makes things look slightly more natural. Weird, I know, but if you have blonde brows, you might really enjoy that trick. And then this Bodyography product also has a brow gel at the end, which we're going to use and go ahead and set the brows. You want to make sure you're not using a brow gel that has too shiny of a finish because that might just end up looking weird, especially in photography. Alrighty, I know this is a long video. If you're still sticking around, thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see some more fair skin videos. Moving into eyeshadow, I know I've been using this palette. I sounded like Mario. I've been using this palette. I know I've been using this palette a lot, but it is such a fair skin dream. If you have more fair, neutral skin, I feel like a lot of wedding makeup looks can be warmer, which look great on people with warm hair and like darker skin. But if you're like me and warm tones, I used to love them. I don't feel like they're as flattering on me as these tones. Enough talking. The Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. This I think would be a beautiful investment that you could keep afterwards as a nice memory. It is gorgeous. It has everything you need. If you want it to be more budget friendly, the ColourPop Stone Cold Fox has some similar shades. I don't feel like it's as nice as this one in terms of like the taupes that you get, but good, beautiful option. We're gonna go ahead and start with this shade, which is called Fair. Very nice. This is the transition shade we're gonna use, so it's slightly darker than my skin, but just barely. So I just take a fluffy brush and work this into my crease. So we have that like light powder there, so it's going to give us a guideline for where the shadow shape is going to go. As I mentioned earlier, if you're not as comfortable, definitely do your eyes first because then you could clean up the shape really easily. Next up, taking a smaller but still fluffy brush, going in with this shade, which is called Mesh, which is more cool toned. I'm going to work this in from the outer corner, but this is going to be way closer to my actual crease line. We're not going to bring it up as far. And then just make sure you're really blending in circular motions. The eye look I feel like is more dependent on your eye shape and what you like. For me, I'm going to do more of like a accentuating my roundness of my eyes type of look. If you feel like you need help blending, you could dip back into the fair shade and go over the edges. And of course, just like look at it from different angles, from far away. Make sure it's working. Now you could keep your look super neutral or you could take it a little bit more pink. It kind of depends on what you're going for. I think I'm gonna take it slightly more pink just to add, it's like a way to add warmth in a non like orangey way. So I'm gonna take this shade. It's a muted rose called Vague. I'm just gonna use that same brush. Very lightly, I'm just gonna go over where we put that previous shade. And then taking that big fluffy brush again, making sure we blend all of this together. Next up, taking this more angled brush. This is a BK Beauty 205. So it has a slant to it, almost like a slanted like bronzer brush. So taking this shade Stone, which is sort of the next step from this one called Mesh. It's just slightly darker. Getting that on the brush. This is a really nice brush for more targeted application. I'm going to pack this on the outer corner of the eye, keeping it very close to the crease line and lash line. And I'm sort of just gonna lay down the color before we blend it out. And now we're gonna go ahead and blend that in. So now I'm gonna go to the lower lash line with a smaller brush. I'm just gonna use those same shades. So I'm gonna use this shade first, and then I'm gonna go in with this shade and then a little bit of this rosy one as well, in sort of the same layers that we did up top. So I'm gonna take that light fair shade and just shade down there like a transition. And then taking the Mesh shade, which is that light taupe right on the outer corner. I'm gonna focus mine on the outer corner. I like that more for my eye shape. And then blend that in. And then I'm gonna take a much smaller brush for that more rosy shade. And I'm gonna stamp this on the lower lash line. And then go back in with that brush to blend it in with the other shades. Because we have that powder laid down, it's actually gonna help us a lot with this lower lash line and helping everything blend in. So if you prefer a more smoky look, you could continue building upon this using this next tender shade to deepen it even further. But this is what I'm more comfortable with. I don't want it to be super smoky because we are gonna do more of like a smoky eyeliner. Before we do that, I do have a bit of an eye base that we're gonna use. We do have the concealer on, but this is going to help the lid shade pop. So this is the Jason Woo Prime Eye in the shade White. Grab a little bit on the back of my hand. I like to apply this with my finger. It's very pigmented. And then I like to start this on the center of my eye and then start to blend it on the inner corner. You can use a brush if you want to be more precise. Before this color sets, you want to go in with your shimmery shade. I'm going to use this shimmery pink because I think it's so pretty. It's called Mia, and I am going to do like more of a pink tone look, but it's so light it doesn't really pull pink, and I like to apply this with my finger to avoid fallout, and it's gonna stick right to that primer, and it is just so pretty and gorgeous. I am feeling I wanna do like a deeper shimmer on the outer corner. I'm gonna take this shade, which is called Filtery. This is really pretty rich brown. It's so creamy. Also using this on my finger, I'm going to dab that on at first, and then we're gonna go back in with a brush and then sort of pat over that to make sure that it's blended in. Trying not to disrupt it too much because that's when you can get some more shimmer fallout. What I like about these shadows is they almost feel like they have more of like a creamy base to them, so they stick to the eye a lot better. They're not like flying everywhere when you're applying them. This is really great for avoiding fallout. Actually took a little bit of that dark filtery shade right on the outer corner. So I am gonna do a little bit of shimmer on the lower lash line as well. But instead of using that pink shimmer and possibly getting a lot of fallout, I have a little bit of a trick. I'm gonna grab the NYX Epic Wear liner. I absolutely love these, especially the shade Rose Gold. Basically just a very sparkly neutral shade. Need to sharpen it, so that would totally just cut up my eye. Don't want that. So I got that, and we're going to put this on the lower lash line and connect it to that darker shade. I think this would just look so pretty in pictures, and it's really long lasting, so it's not going to run off of your eyes. Really good trick for a long wearing shimmery color. Next, I'm gonna do a little bit of white eyeliner on the waterline. This is also from NYX. These are the faux whites. I'm not sure if they still sell these, but I would really recommend checking out this line because they have different tints to them. This one is blue. I feel like the pink one might be the most natural. Instead of a stark white, it looks just a little bit more natural because, you know, like that part of your eye isn't so pure white. It does have a slight color to it. Now for our inner highlight, I'm actually gonna take a matte white. This one's from NYX. It's called Whipped Cream. I always like to start with a matte white base, whether I do a shimmer on top or not. I just like to blend it into that lid shade and then also pop that right on the brow bone. And then you could do a shimmer on the inner corner. I think I might avoid it just because I feel like it would look a little bit more natural. We already have the shimmery lid. Having a lot of shimmer on the inner corner, maybe not the best looking. Moving on to our eyeliner, I'm actually not going to be using any liquid or pencil liner. First off, because the powder, using powder is actually going to wear better. It's not going to run off, which is a big risk if you're going to be crying. It also looks really pretty and natural on fair skin to have like a blended smoky type of dark brown liner versus black. So I'm going to use this shade in the Natasha palette, which is called Silhouette, which is a deep espresso brown. Packing this onto a small brush, all the excess off so you're not getting fallout. I'm gonna start really building this up. First, just stamping it on the lash line. This is also, I feel like, a little bit more mistake proof. It's way easier to clean up than a liquid liner or a pencil. So I just like to stamp on my wing shape. I like quite a big wing, but just do whatever you're comfortable with. I don't want to bring it in too far into the inner corner. I want to keep that space nice and bright. And then actually taking whatever's left over very close to the lash line, right on that outer corner. If you have really watery eyes, you might want to like avoid putting anything there. So now that we have the base shape on, I'm going to smoke this out actually quite a lot. I'm going to take this tender shade on like a smaller, fluffier brush. I'm actually going to start to go over the wing and just soften all those edges. This might not seem like it's doing much, but I feel like it really does make a difference in making everything look super seamless and pretty and natural. I just feel like it helps so much with everything looking perfected and smooth and like more smoky. I feel like especially if you're doing a wing, you want it to look like you have big old wing liner on, unless that's what you like. To clean this up and make it look really sharp and professional, back into the white foundation. If you want something like more subtle, you can use just the tinted powder on this flat brush. Go right under that wing. This goes into what I was saying of shadow liner. So much easier to clean up. That's all you have to do to make it look just super professional. It also helps to clean up maybe like any shadow that we had here, so it doesn't drag the eye shape down. I feel like I want almost a little bit more smoke. I'm gonna go back into this shade and just go over the outer corner again, and then using a brush to smoke that back in. Everything is looking just so perfected and smooth. Now I'm gonna go back in with a powder brush. We're gonna brush away any fallout and that extra powder that we had under the eyes to brighten. So now you can see the payoff of the lighter powder right in the hollows of the eyes, of just bringing that part of the face forward and then also helping to protect from getting any fallout. Before we do lashes, I'm going to do a setting spray. This is from Surratt Cosmetics Instant Makeup Fix. If you're using a long wear setting spray and you actually get it on your eyeshadow, it can help extend the life of those powders. Be very careful with it though. If you don't have one that's actually extending the wear of your makeup, I would for sure avoid that area. And then just make sure that it is dry before you do lashes, because you don't want to put mascara onto wet lashes. For that, I actually have this cute little fan from Amazon. The setting spray is also, of course, going to melt in all of the powder we have on our face because it's a lot, so a very crucial step. All right, let's pop some mascara on. I'm gonna do the Maybelline Sky High Mascara in the brown shade. They have the waterproof version, which I would definitely use. I'm gonna do brown lashes because it looks so, I feel like, much more natural on me to have a soft color. This is more for if you have like light skin and light hair. If you have dark hair, black might actually look a little bit more harmonious on you. But if you are similar to me, then brown is gonna look really pretty. To make sure you avoid getting mascara on your lids when you're applying it, hold a mirror like right below your chin and apply the mascara that way, because it gives you a lot more space between the lid and the lashes versus when you're sort of doing it like that. For lashes, I would really recommend playing around with a shape that suits your eye shape if you are gonna do falsies, which I will be doing. These are the Ardell Demi Wispies. I also like the Kiss 01 lashes, which are a bit longer. I am going to trim these. These are wispy, a little bit lighter. I don't like anything that's too full on the inner corner. It just doesn't work with my eyes. They're a little bit more close set. I just saw that House of Lashes released macchiato lashes, which have brown and black fibers, which would be perfect for this look. I really want to get them. If you're doing brown mascara, especially, like I said, if you have light hair and light skin, it's gonna look really pretty and natural. I haven't tried them, but I'm guessing they look really pretty in person. So let's trim these babies. Highly recommend just using a clear lash glue. Duo works great. Using black, if it gets anywhere, it's really hard to remove. It could just literally be a disaster. Clear, it dries clear. You can put shadow over it. Not gonna mess you up. If you're not using a liquid liner, I would really recommend using these lashes like this one that have the Invisiband, where they don't have that thick black band on them, because it's gonna be harder to conceal that when we don't have a liquid liner to go over it. So I only trim this. Let me see how this looks. So I'm just gonna fit it on my eye and see if it works before we apply it. Okay, so that looks like it's gonna work perfectly. Now we're gonna put our glue on. I like to do mascara before lashes. I just think it looks a little bit better. You definitely wanna wear mascara under your lashes though, by the way, because you just have like light lashes and then dark lash can be really obvious. Now I like to apply these with my hands. I feel like I have the most control, but you could use tweezers if you really need them. And then get them as close as possible to your actual lashes, but also make sure not to stick them to your lashes, which I've done so many times before. It's like, that's too good. You don't want them on the lashes, you still want them to be on your lid. So I like to apply them and then I will push them up a little bit. That way they dry a little bit more lifted. And bam, there's one lash. Now that those are setting, I do feel like they actually need a little bit of shadow right next to them just to blend in that band. So I'm gonna use that matte brown that we used. And I'm just going to very carefully stamp that on the inner corner. And I'm also gonna go over the lash band with this to blend it in with the eyeliner, because even though the lash glue is clear, it sometimes have a slight sheen to it. So you wanna make sure it blends in with everything. Onto lips. I know it can be so hard to find a good, like, more cool tone lip combo for fair skin. I have one here. I feel like I should do a video about all my favorite lip combos. Let me know if you're interested. First, ColourPop Cool BFF. If all lip liners look warm on you, try this bad boy out. So I'm just gonna line my lips. So I feel like most of us, including myself, when we're doing lip liner, you sometimes like stretch out your lips, which actually distorts your lip shape. So if you want it to look very natural, literally just relax your lips as much as possible to make sure that the shape looks like your lips. So liquid lipsticks are a really good bet because they're long lasting and they just stay on no matter what. But here's the con with most of them is they're usually drying or super matte. But Urban Decay has these Vice Bond lipsticks. This shade OG Back Talk is so pretty for fair skin. It is more of a cool pinky nude. To apply this thin layer, do not touch your lips together. Let it completely dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Because when I first tried these, I hated them because I would like, you know, mash it around and it would be patchy. Can't do that. They actually have tons of shades of these, even their own backtalk line. So different shades within this sort of color family. If you're looking for a different tone or shade, something that's darker, but really recommend this formula. Now, once this is dry, I do want to highlight the center of the lips a little bit. I'm going to take this Flower Beauty Bare Pout, which is this super light, more peachy shade, but this is going to be a highlight. I'm just going to dab that over the center, so it's not going to affect the formula too much, but it just adds a little bit of dimension. Oh, I forgot to mention, these, they don't dry matte, which is another amazing thing. That's why they're called glossy bonds, I believe. They just have more of like that sheen to them. It's not as glossy as a gloss, but it's also not a super matte lip. So you could do a gloss over the lip, but it is going to affect the longevity of this formula. So I'm just gonna skip it because you do already have like a little bit of sheen to it already. Now at this point, you're gonna wanna step back and just see if you need to fix anything or add anything. For me, I feel like I can almost do a little bit more blush. I know this color actually seems crazy, but it's a super bright one from Make Beauty. It's called Fuchsia Flush. Using literally the tiniest amount. I just wanna add a little bit on the center of the blush area. Just want to make that pop even more. Like I said, blush can really just like wash out in different lighting. But here is our finished look. I'm gonna go ahead and include pictures of this makeup in flash photography just to show you that you're not gonna get flashback and how it looks on camera. We're on camera right now. I'll also do some shots on my phone, like up close. I just want to emphasize, it literally does not feel like I have tons of makeup on my face because we use so many thin layers. It actually just feels so thin and comfortable. It is more on the matte side because I'm more oily, so it depends on your skin type. But yeah, everything looks perfected and smooth and sculpted, but in such a non-obvious way, and it just enhances fair skin with these like cool neutral shades, a little bit of shimmer, perfect like neutral cool lip. Finding shades that work for you are really important. That's why I wanted to share all of my favorite tips for fair skin, because finding shades that work with us that don't look warm or pull just makeup-y can be so hard to find. Trust me, I know it is such a struggle. I have like a million foundations and like 2 of them match me. But, you know, I test all these things so you know what to buy and what not to, so you don't end up with all the stuff that I have that just doesn't work. But I hope you found this video so helpful. It is just the perfect amount of makeup in my opinion. I still feel like myself, but like very glammed up and perfected. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see some more fair skin makeup videos. Give this video a like. There'll be 2 more fair skin makeup videos if you want to learn some more tips and tricks. I will see you in one of those too. So see you there. Bye.